Postseason expectations once again this year for the Ottawa Senators. Will this finally be the year? We discuss that and more on today's special season preview edition of Locked On NHL. We are your team every day. The NHL season is less than a week away, and Locked On's season preview coverage continues as we welcome on the host of the Locked On Senators podcast, Brandon Pillar, to discuss everything you need to know about the Ottawa Senators heading into the 2023-2024 season. Brandon, thank you for joining me today. Let's start with the big one. What is the biggest storyline surrounding the Ottawa Senators this season?
Well, Seth, for me, the biggest storyline surrounding the Ottawa Senators this season is new ownership. Like in the NHL, new ownership doesn't come around very often. The Senators sold for $950 million to Michael Andlauer, the biggest NHL team sale ever recorded. That surprised everyone. And Michael Andlauer comes in here with pedigree and the hope that this franchise will finally have some stability as far as ownership goes. He has a championship in the OHL with the Hamilton Bulldogs. He was a minority owner with the Montreal Canadiens. He said he's glad, or his wife said she's glad to get rid of all his Habs stuff, and Sens fans were glad to hear that too. He's officially an Ottawa Senators fan and owner. And just in his press conference, he hit on a lot of the right stuff. The new arena is going to be focused on the fans. He's going to be focused on bringing stability to the ice. And he's already added in some additions to this front office, bringing in the analytics team, bringing back a lot of people that have had success in the Ottawa Senators organization as far as management and executives go. So really, this is the beginning of a new era for Ottawa Senators fans, as we're hoping that with a new owner with clear goals on bringing a better team on the ice and engaging fans more will bring much more stability and make this team fun to root for again.
Now, that obviously is a pretty big offseason move, is new ownership. But was there another move maybe for the team that was the biggest this offseason, and why?
Absolutely. Yeah, there was a couple big moves this offseason for the Ottawa Senators, but none bigger than the signing of free agent Joonas Korpisalo. They signed a 29-year-old goaltender to a 5-year deal. Now, if you look at the AAV at $4 million, that's not bad for someone that slates to be a 1A goalie, but he's going to be 34 years old at the end of that season, and he's coming from a Columbus Blue Jackets team. Most of his career he spent there. Then he got traded to the LA Kings. But Pierre Dorion has mentioned he really had interest in Korpisalo even before this. They tried to get him a trade deadline a couple of years ago, and just the deal wouldn't come through. But the key thing here is it seems like a lot of the NHL is kind of being more comfortable going to tandem goalie styles rather than having your prototypical starter that's going to play 60 games and then a backup that's just going to play a second half of back-to-backs and just give your starter a break. A lot of the teams that are having success, and I mean, your Minnesota Wild are kind of similar spot, you need two goalies that you can rely upon night in and night out. And the nice thing with having Joonas Korpisalo come in here is Anton Forsberg is a great 1B type goalie. And on top of that, the Ottawa Senators love connecting friendships and relationships. These guys already have a relationship and have good chemistry. They were both a part of Calder Cup champions in the Cleveland Monsters back in the day when they were both a part of the Columbus organization. So they already know how to share the crease. There's not going to be any kind of like awkward tension or anything like that you sometimes see between goalies. So Pierre Dorion really made a big splash signing a free agent goalie to 5 years because, unfortunately, Cam Talbot didn't work out in Ottawa. Matt Murray didn't work out in Ottawa. Ever since Craig Anderson left this organization, they've been struggling to find stability, and Pierre Dorion and the rest of Sens fans hope that finally is here with Joonas Korpisalo.
Brandon, which player figures to be most important to the Senators' success this season, and what makes that particular player as important to this overall team's success?
Well, there's a bunch of X-factor players for the Ottawa Senators, as they have one of the best up top to bottom rosters they've had in a long time. But kind of, I talked about offseason additions, but kind of a free agent signing in interior in the team is Josh Norris, because he missed a lot of last season. He only played 8 games last year. So although he still hasn't suited up for a preseason game, he's had a lot of shoulder injury struggles. This is a proven goal scorer. I mean, just 2 years ago in 66 games, he had 35 goals. So it's not crazy to say that this guy can project to be a 40 goal scorer. And they need goal scoring, as Alex DeBrincat was shipped out of town. That's another player that didn't exactly work out. He didn't have his best year here in Ottawa. So if Josh Norris can reach that 30 goals and maybe even higher, high 30s or even 40 goals if he's healthy for a full season, that would be huge for the Ottawa Senators. And it's not just his goal scoring that matters. Sens fans were frustrated last year without him in the lineup. It ruined this roster. Not having him as a second line center forced Shane Pinto, who is still an unsigned RFA, forced him to be a second line center. Then there wasn't a true third line center, and just the overall roster construction just didn't make sense. So they really need to have a roster where you see Tim Stützle as the number 1, Josh Norris as the number 2, Shane Pinto as the number 3, and Mark Kaslick as the number 4. So if Josh Norris is healthy, that could be huge for this team. If he's not healthy, we could see the same type of problems that the Senators struggled with last season.
Let's talk breakout candidates. Is there one name in particular for the Senators that fans should be keeping an eye on this season?
There's a couple names, but I'm going to highlight Jakob Chychrun here, Seth. He was brought in at the trade deadline, a massive, massive trade for the Ottawa Senators. The biggest part of that is he had term on his deal. He's got 2 years left at about $4.5 million. And this is a defenseman who also has had injury struggles in the past, but Sens fans are hoping that he can finally be a proper partner for Thomas Chabot on that top pair. Thomas Chabot has had to kind of put the entire decor on his shoulders for most of his career as a member of the Ottawa Senators. Now you bring in a guy in Jakob Chychrun who can play the left and the right side, and this is a goal-scoring defenseman. He has an absolute cannon of a shot. He's got a great wrist shot as well. But it's not just his offense that Sens fans are happy about. It's his defense as well. So look for Jakob Chychrun to put up probably the most amount of goals for defensemen on this team, but also be a stable guy that can let Thomas Chabot kind of pinch in for more plays, be a part of the transition, while Jakob Chychrun can be a more responsible guy when it comes to the defensive side of the game. So we're really excited for him and hope that he can stay healthy and have a big impact this season.
All right, we talked about it at the top. Big expectations this season for the Senators to try to get to that wonderful postseason dance that everybody tries every season to be part of. So I would imagine that factors into a successful season for Ottawa. If they don't end up meeting that or other expectations for the year, what's at stake?
Yeah, you said it off the top, Seth. This is very important for the Ottawa Senators to make the playoffs this year. Ross and I have our slogan on Locked On Senators. It's playoffs or bust, no excuses. Because before there's been excuses, injuries, things like that, the owner not wanting to spend to the cap. And now there's no excuses. The owner has said he's going to spend to the cap. They've got a great roster here. They've got young players that are primed to take elevated roles. And look, on Locked On Senators, we started this in November 2019. We just recorded episode 883. We have covered zero playoff games. And I'm sick and tired of having this show wrap up and start draft coverage in May and June. I want to be in the playoffs. I want to be in the mix here. And Sens fans feel the same way. So it's absolutely crucial that this team makes the playoffs. Now, I think there's kind of a divide with Sens fans. Some Sens fans are like, you know, the hyperbolic statements. This is our year. We've got the team. We can go to the cup. But from missing the playoffs 6 years in a row to being a cup contender is a lot to ask. So I'll kind of slow down those high expectations. And I'll say, look, this team's got to make the playoffs. That I don't think any Sens fan is wavering on. They have to make the playoffs this year. But for me, you're looking at a lot of core players, Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, Josh Norris. A lot of these guys haven't even experienced the playoffs yet. So I think it's going to be a new challenge for them. My expectation is that they make it to the playoffs and they make round one really tough on their opponent, whether that sees them winning that series and moving forward, which obviously would be ideal, or just not having it be a sweep or a gentleman's sweep. Get to 6 or 7 games, make things tough on your opponent, whoever that might be. Now, what's at stake if they don't make the playoffs this year? The interesting thing with Ottawa is a lot of their core guys are locked up long term. Like Thomas Chabot's got term. Josh Norris has term. Brady Tkachuk has term. Tim Stützle has term. They just signed Jake Sanderson to an 8-year extension. Joonas Korpisalo 5 years. So the what's at stake isn't really on the cornerstone pieces. They're staying. They're on good deals. They're a part of this future. Where the stakes get high and the seats get warm is for general manager Pierre Dorion and head coach DJ Smith. They have been together for a long time without any playoff success. And when you get a new owner that's just forked over $950 million and you can't make the playoffs, there's going to be some changes. I can be very confident in saying that. So what's at stake mostly is the general manager and head coaching job, and the fandom's frustration and patience is wearing thin. They've got the right team to do it. So let's see them actually put their money where their mouth is and get to some postseason hockey.
In order to get to the top of the stairs, you got to take that first step. And the Senators trying to do that here this season. For more on the Ottawa Senators, make sure to follow along with Locked On Senators on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube so you never miss an episode. And make sure to check out the season previews for all 32 teams across the Locked On NHL channel. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.